mic over there.
That's right. I'll speak. Can everyone hear me? I was one of the people, one of the trustees, termed out trustees, that was on the ballot in March. The reason I was on the ballot was in the February meeting, we had 4 announced candidates for 7 open seats. And under City Policy 600-24, if that's a situation, termed out trustees are allowed to run again. And with the condition, there's really 2 conditions, one of which was talked about at the time, which was that a termed out trustee would have to receive 2/3 of the votes cast in order to be elected. Now here's what happened on the night of the election. And this is, the problem goes back to the way the election, not the way it was handled, but the interpretation of Policy 600-24, which, by the way, is the policy under which this board operates and obtains the indemnification of the city. That evening, there were 3 write-in candidates. You didn't know it going into the election booth, but you knew it coming out. There were 3 write-in candidates, all of whom were determined after the fact to be eligible to run, and all of whom received at least some votes. That meant there were 9 candidates that received votes. 4 on the original ballot, 3 write-ins, and 2 turned out candidates. Now the city policy, when it comes to the 600-24, when it comes to the administrative guidelines of that policy, what it says is that where there are more candidates elected than there are open seats, the first preference, the first people to be seated will be the non-termed out candidates. There were 7 open seats. There were 7 candidates non-termed out who received valid votes. And in my opinion, even though I received a large number of votes, the termed out candidates should not have been seated, should not have been declared the winners by the guidelines that underline Policy 600-24. I'm quoting right from the guidelines to that policy when it comes to elections. The reason that I subsequently resigned, and by the way, I expressed that opinion early on. At the time I was an officer until April. I expressed that opinion when the officers met, but I was recused from the discussion about who would be declared a successful candidate or not, because I recused myself because it was about me. But to me, the issue is fairly simple. We had 7 non-termed out candidates, valid candidates who received votes at the March election. Those should have been the 7 candidates seated. And that's my position. And that's why I subsequently resigned. I was told you were elected. And I didn't feel that was right. I feel the city's interpretation of Policy 600-24 was correct. And I don't think it's that complicated an issue, but it does go back to the confusion came about not applying that interpretation of 600-24. There should have been 7 people seated in April, and those should have been the 7 non-termed out candidates. And that's why I resigned. And it has nothing to do with personalities, but I think it would be in our best interest as an organization to adhere to the city's interpretation of their Policy 600-24. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.